Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're listening. I am your host, Christopher, and this is another episode of The Practical People. But this is part two, and you're thinking, where's part one of this episode? It's over on my other show, Household Filmmaking. But we're here with Natasha from Fangoria and Cinestate. You and Natasha, you are you're the digital. Say I knew I'd forget it. Tell me your title again.
I know it's long. I'm the director of digital production and social media engagement. Yes, it
That's
is a
it.
mouthful.
The funny thing is, I would have remembered it, except when you told me that the first time you said something like, I don't expect you to remember. It's like a psychological
Uh,
mind thing where you
I
go.
don't even remember it half the time, so.
So, well, you have a very exciting position because, for anyone that's listening to the last show, Fangoria is a fantastic magazine dedicated to horror movies. And it was around since the 70s. I used to ride
Yep.
my bike to the drugstore and get like an ice cream cone and pick it up from the magazine rack, and just like wear out my copies of it because I was dying for the behind the scenes of the movie. And you guys at Cinestate, you acquired Fangoria, you brought it back. You're making movies using the Fangoria label once again, like Fangoria did. And these are beautiful movies like Bone Tomahawk, Puppet Master, Littlest Reich, bloody, gory, special effects, practical effects driven movies. Do you guys use any CGI in your movies at all? Like wire removal or
Yeah, very, very minimal.
so yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I wanted to talk a bit about the practical effects aspect. Now, I would pick up Fangoria magazines and I would see interviews with special effects artists, um, and you would see the behind the scenes photos of people in makeup chairs or animatronics, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
Is Fangoria bringing back that aspect of behind the scenes?
Oh, absolutely. Like we couldn't do a magazine without that part. We love special effects and we love practical effects and in a world that's, all green screen and all CGI, it was important that we brought back, some attention to the art of special effects and practical effects. And absolutely, like we have a whole section from Tate Steinsick. He is our man, our go-to guy for special effects on all of our movies. He did all the effects on Puppet Master. He designed all of the puppets actually for that movie. He is currently on set right now on Satanic Panic, doing all the special effects for that film.
And that's your
And
next
if
Fangoria feature, right?
Yes, yes, that is our second Fangoria Presents film. So, we actually have a whole tutorial in Volume 2, Issue number 1, on how to slit your own throat by Tate. And it, it goes through it step by step, and it actually gives you all of the tools that you will need to do that. So it's important for us to give you and the audience, the Fango fans, the opportunity to try these things yourself because we understand how important, you know, horror movie fans are not satisfied with watching the films. They want to know how it's done. Like we're just not content to watch, Halloween and be like, "Oh, that was cool." No, that's not us.
We want to
We
dive
want
into every aspect of it. Are you a behind the
exactly.
scenes like are you like a special features junkie like I am? Do you
Oh, yes. Yes. And I know you definitely are, Chris, but I love the special features. When I was growing up, I would always want to watch the special features. I probably watch the special features before I even watch the movie sometimes. So yes, there's definitely like the Fangoria, the new issues of Fangoria are going to be very familiar. When you pick them up, you know it. There's special effects, there's tutorials, there's everything that you want to know about your favorite movies. We're going to include that.
Is it do you guys actually like go and visit stuff? It's probably hard to travel over the country now cuz you guys are in Texas. So I'm sure you're kind of Texas centric when it comes to maybe like where you're visiting, but have you guys gotten the opportunity to get your hands dirty or
Oh yeah, definitely. If you look in the first issue that came out earlier this month, Meredith Borders, who's our managing editor, she actually was on the set of the new Halloween, and she got a chance to go everywhere and talk to everyone. So we are very hands-on, and if we can get somewhere, we're going to. Um, and actually, I was just on the Joe Bob Briggs set for his new special that's coming, I think Thanksgiving, and I think there's also one for Christmas he was taping. So yeah, we are there because as horror lovers, like if we have the opportunity to get on set and actually be there and talk to the people making the movies, we're gonna be there.
there's nothing like it. I mean, it is really
Oh
exciting
yeah.
to be a part of that. Even if you're just a part of it in terms of being an observer and recording. But there is like an electricity in the air when you're in the presence of these effects. Now, as far as Cinestate goes, that is producing hand in hand with Fangoria, Puppet Master, Littlest Reich, Bone Tomahawk, most recently Dragged Across Concrete. Um, are you guys? Do you guys cover any of that stuff in your magazine as well? Can they?
Yes, absolutely. In the new issue, we have a whole section on Puppet Master. One of our writers, Preston Fossil, was actually an extra in Puppet Master and did a whole set visit write-up on the experience. So, like, it's just the perfect opportunity. We have to be there anyway. So it's just it's we're close to it, which makes it easier for us. And it's also really interesting. Like, who doesn't want to be around crazy demonic puppets all day? Like, come on.
So here's something that's kind of been on my mind recently, and it's a conversation that I've had with some other people. But um, you know, practical effects seem to be the the thing that you cannot shirk on in horror when it comes to science
Right.
fiction or epic battles. Going to Mordor or whatever. Usually you can get away with CGI because it's
You
part of
can't
that.
do it without it.
Yeah, you can't do it without it, but it's part. It's the audiences have come to accept it as part of like the fantasy experience.
Right, right.
And CGI is definitely come a long way. There's some great CGI. I'm never going to knock CGI effects, and I know some people who are some great CGI artists, but for some reason, if you put CGI in a horror movie, most people I've talked to will agree with this, it ceases to become scary. Just
Yes.
something about CGI takes you out of the horror moment. Maybe there's been some like really great CGI moments that we don't know about because we didn't notice them or something, but for some reason, practical effects seem to be a necessity for scaring people. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on why you thought that is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as the social media person, like, if there's ever any time I post a clip from a horror movie that has CGI in it, oh man, like I'm gonna get some negative comments. I really am. Um, so I think there's something about it actually happening in front of you and being caught on camera that makes it seem more real because it is real.
Mm-hmm.
With CGI, it's not real. It doesn't it's not actually there. With practical effects, it's there. So it has to be real. Um, so I think that's why practical effects, at least to me, have a better scare factor because it's actually happening. And there's always edits and there's always things that you have to do on a computer to make those practical effects work sometimes, and clean them up. But for the most part, what you see is happening at some point. So I think that's why they're scary. Why do you think, Chris? I mean, you're around this stuff all the time.
Oh,
What
gee.
would you say?
I guess it's again it pretty much amounts to what you said. It's the visceral quality. It's if someone is reacting to something that isn't there and put in post, uh, and the CGI isn't perfect, and you can tell it's CGI, it doesn't look like they're responding to that actual object. So you're taken out of the movie a bit. Whereas, like I said, with the visceral quality of it, if that that blood is actually bursting from that victim and spattering on someone else, that there's no denying the kind of relating to it in a textile way as an audience member, I guess. I was watching some clips from The Walking Dead. I'm one of those rare horror fans that isn't a fan of The Walking Dead, which is a whole. I should do a show on just my
Hey,
feelings with why that is.
I
But
haven't, I haven't, I have never seen an episode of The Walking Dead.
I've tried it a few times. Like people keep selling me on it. Like I'll go like, I wasn't into it, and they'll go, no, 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 this season is great. You got to go check it out. And I go check it out, and it's like I keep getting tricked into going and watching it. And there's two reasons that is. One is there's a lot of that CGI blood splatter, like a zombie will get shot, and it's so obviously like composited in that it takes me
Right.
right out. It's not a a gut blowing shotgun blast or something like that. You can tell that it's a composite in, and the way the blood splatters out just doesn't splatter out like real blood would. And that bothers me, man. It bothers
Yeah.
me. And the other thing too is I'm a little and this is something, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the household filmmaking segment, where we were talking about kind of cliches, and I'm not saying it's bad storytelling, but you guys have taken a lot of chances and tried to approach characters in a way that isn't normally done. And for me, a lot of the kind of the cliches of like, oh, it's not the zombies that are the monster, man's the monster. And I'm like, I would really just like the zombies to be a monster for the change. Like, let's make it about the zombies. Like,
Let's make it about the zombie.
I'm here for the zombies, and you guys are giving me this like human drama about how terrible people are, and we're just going to tear each other apart. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't like it's, and I'm not saying that's not interesting, but it's been done so many times. And, if I hear one more time somebody say, oh, the great thing about this movie is the monster's not the monster, man's the monster. And I'm like, I want the
Oh,
monster to be the monster. Okay, let's have the
I
monster be the
know.
monster and just have some monster fun. So,
I so agree with you, Chris. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't need a message in my movie. I just want to see a creature. That's all.
and I don't get me wrong, I am a subtext junkie, but I don't like, and this is again what excites me about the Cinestate movies, is you guys aren't trying to make your movies any kind of like clear cut, black and white. These are the good guys, these are the bad guys stories.
Right.
You guys have talked about making the characters all flawed characters, all coming from different points of view, and just seeing what happens in the story when you put them together, which digresses from practical effects, and we talked about it in the last show. But yeah, maybe that's also what excites me about being at a practical effects shop or being on the set of a horror movie, is you are there to dive into the creature effects. This is how we make these tentacles move. This is how we slit this person's throat. This is how this person's head explodes, or how we tear them in
Right.
half, or something like that. And it's just, or this is the creature suit that we made, or the animatronic creature that we made. And you just like, I don't think there's any shame in wanting to indulge in that in your movies. That's a big part of the fun. So I think when people try and get a bit too cerebral or a bit too, messagey in their movie, it's yeah, it kind of spoils it because ultimately you're alienating part of your audience at any given time, and you know you can't make everybody happy, but you know I've there are many horror movies I've seen where they try and bring in that message, and I'm like, you know, I would have
Right.
really had a good time, but your message is garbage.
Right. I totally agree with you. It's like, what happened to just watching a horror movie for fun? I think that was one of the big things in like the 80s got right. There didn't have to be like you're watching Return of the Living Dead. Like it's just pure fun, and I think people just want that escapism. There's a time and a place for messaging, of course. But to me, when I go to the movies, I just want to have some fun and watch some great special effects and just I want my mind to be stimulated by how the heck did they pull that off instead.
I have to make a confession. I was watching Eli Roth's History of Horror last night. I DVR'd it, and they did the zombie episode, and it was so
Oh,
full of people just over intellectualizing zombies, and they mean this, and it's this part of our society, and and I was so excited to watch the show too, and there was so much like belly button gazing. And then they came to one of my favorite movies, Reanimator.
oh yeah.
Uh and like some people were even trying to kind of like over intellectualize Reanimator. I'm like, are you kidding me?
What?
And
Have you seen that movie?
I was so disappointed in the show because I
Oh
really
man.
wanted to dive more into, they had Todd Savini and they'd start to talk about the special effects, like, oh, we did this little bit, but it would like, then they go back to the other stuff. And I was like, history of horror to me, I guess, is just a bit too much more about the effects. So anyway, I'm taking over your interview
No, no, I completely agree with you, Chris. 100%.
so you again are working on Satanic Panic. You guys are working on that at the moment. I hope that you're getting to do some fun special effects in there. But you probably can't give away. Can you sneak a little bit in? Or?
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that worms are involved at some point,
Nice.
and that's it. Although I haven't been on set for any of the special effects shooting yet, but from what I've heard, it's been fun. And I'll tell you a little more. There's some fire involved and a whole lot of blood. So there you go.
All good stuff.
Yeah,
It,
all good stuff.
are they real worms or are they practical effects? No, you probably can't say that either.
Um, I they're real. I'll tell you they're real
Okay.
because they are.
So since I can't pry too much out of you at the moment about that movie, and we've talked a bit about Puppet Master, and I love puppets. That's another aspect of filmmaking that I think is really great. Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Puppet Master just for a moment. So,
Yeah.
just how many puppets were created for that movie, and did you guys have a ton of puppeteers? What was kind of like? Are there puppets in the office right now?
Yes, there are some puppets in the office. I've been very fortunate to haul Blade around many, many times. He's been my travel companion. I think one of them might be in Mexico right now. I don't know what he's doing, but
Vacationing.
yeah, he's doing something in Mexico. Um, but yeah, I mean, we ship those buggers everywhere. Like if we have a Puppet Master premiere in a different country or doing press, like they just go everywhere. And it's always fun. Like I love, you know, propping those guys up and doing videos with them and playing with them. Some classic puppets were a little like remodeled for Puppet Master the Littlest Reich. Now this is a little bit before my time because I didn't join until March of this year. But from what I know, like We have Blade back. He looks a little different. We have Torch, Pinhead, and I think those are the three like original puppets that we brought back. And then we have a couple new ones. Actually, there's so many new ones in the new movie, actually. I don't even know all of their names. I know there's Happy Amphibian, who's the frog. Um, there's Auto Gyro, who's like a helicopter kind of puppet. But yeah, it's a cool mix since this is kind of removed. Like Charles Band gave us his blessing. He's an executive producer on the movie. But he's like, well, you guys make your own Puppet Master universe, and I'll keep mine. So we, had the blessing to bring back some of his puppets, and you know, the it it's wide open to create as many new puppets as we want. So that's pretty cool.
That is very
And
cool. Do you think there'll be more Puppet Master movies in the future, or is that yet to be decided?
that's yet to be decided, but I hope so. I mean, it's a fun movie. I'm sure it was fun to shoot. From what I've heard, it was a very eventful shoot. So it would be cool to be on set for another Puppet Master.
Well, I'm really again. I'll just kind of put that in. Maybe you can put that out there in the office. Christopher loves puppets. Not just puppet like killer puppets, but anytime a puppet is used, even if it's like in a miniature, it's supposed to be a bigger monster or something like that.
Oh,
Like anytime a puppet is used, I'm really enthusiastic about that.
well,
Um,
Chris, we have something in common because my favorite movie of all time is Gremlins 2: The New Batch. And I freaking love puppets also. I love anytime they're in a movie. They're my absolute favorite. If I had to pick one horror franchise, and it's only two movies, but I I would pick Gremlins. I just love what Chris Wallace and Rick Baker in the second one did with those puppets. I'm looking at my full-size stunt replica Gremlin right now, actually.
that's awesome that you have that. That was a great movie for just going crazy. I think
Yes.
that was the best part of, you had they had um the girl gremlin, and I always love how
Yep, Greta.
they meme that with Yoda, with the, young I was, needed the money I did. uh
Yes.
I resisted doing my Yoda impersonation, and I loved the arachnid gremlin and the
Oh, yep.
winged gremlin. I love they had an excuse to give him like the anti-sunlight formula so he could go flying around the building.
I know.
You know, just absolutely off the wall puppet stuff. That's cool, because I was gonna ask you what, if you had a favorite special effect in movies, or maybe a favorite scene that was like a special effect in movies, because
Yeah.
it's always fun to talk about. But yeah, is there a favorite moment in Gremlins where you're like, that was just a great effect? I can't believe how they pulled that off.
Oh man. Well, I've always been fascinated with the brain gremlin from Gremlins 2. Um, just like going from Gremlins 1 to Gremlins 2, like Chris Wallace, gave us, our initial look into the Gremlins in 1, and then Rick Baker like really perfected them. Like you can see like how good the Gremlins look in Gremlins 2, that they look so good. And it's just amazing to me. Like I'm sure there's some early form of CGI going on with the Brain character when he does this whole like New York, finale, and they all melt, which is just so fantastic. I just love the craziness of that. But there's like so many things. I love puppets so much. I love the werewolves from The Howling, and I guess this is me with my Joe Dante fascination, going from Gremlins to The Howling. But I love the werewolves in The Howling. I think I might even like them more than An American Werewolf in London, just because I like that they're bipedal, and they have more of that werewolf. Like they're not just like an animal. They're kind of like man wolf. I love when the werewolf is in the office, and I forget the actress's name, but you can kind of see, him through like the blinds. Like you
Uh-huh.
can see his outline. I just love the look of that werewolf, and I know it's like it's a puppet, and it's just, the puppets come in pieces. You have like the head, this, like the head for the close-ups, and then you have like the full suit thing for different shots, and I just love how it pieces them together. Um, yeah, I
Absolutely.
just
That's a lot of
it's just
fun.
awesome. It's
And
so fun.
I really loved. I'll just to add to that, one of the shots of that movie that I always thought was really great was the inhuman quality of the werewolf's hand, which was an
Yes.
animatronic piece, but the way it just moved its fingers was, you knew that that
Yes.
was not a human hand in a glove. That was a spindly, weird jointed hand.
Yes.
So yeah, and the way they cut it all together, and that happens in a lot of movies with practical effects. You think you're seeing one creature, but what you're really seeing is a series of edits with different versions of that creature, which have all been specifically built to move a certain function, and that's all it can do. But when you cut it together, it looks like it's completely come to life. So
Yes, I love that. It's so cool. Like that's what I love about the special features and behind the scenes. Like I love how the creatures are built. It's just fascinating to me, and I think like what I think my fa like if you look at the Gremlins' hands and if you look at the Howling's hands, they're kind of similar in that they're jointed and spindly, and um, I just like I just like seeing things that could never be in reality. I think that's what I love most about horror movies, that you know that that thing doesn't exist, but for 2 hours it does exist.
the great
So,
thing, I'm so glad that you brought it up, because the it's not just what's built, it's how they cut it together to fully
mhm.
bring it to life. It's a collaboration between the editor and the director and the special effects artists. And one of the things, I don't know if they did this with Gremlins, probably they did, but I know they did it with Chucky, was there were certain scenes where Chucky's face had to articulate in certain ways that just couldn't be done at the actual Chucky size. So they built a bigger one
Right, yeah, yep.
and just
And they
used it
had to
for
build a
close up.
bigger set.
Yeah, they built a bigger set and did
Mhm.
close ups and that sort of thing, so that it would, and then they just matched that with the footage of the actual size set. So really
I love that.
fun stuff.
And Kevin Yeager, of course, created Chucky, and I'm just, fascinated by his body of work, and it's actually really cool. I One of my other Halloween movies that's on my list is Trick or Treat from 1986, and I just recently found out that he did the special effects for that movie too. And so I emailed him and I was like, "Hey, do you have any photos from Trick or Treat?" And he said he didn't, and that he had to, he would try to find some. But then I actually found them in the Fango vault that we have here. And I actually sent them back to Kevin. I'm like, "Oh, here are your photos." And it was cool to see like the animatronic Sammy Kerr head, and just how, they made some of the scenes work in that movie. And yeah, I love animatronics. I love seeing the puppets. And another movie that I recently actually did a video on Facebook on this the other day, um, was about the animatronics and puppets of Pet Cemetery, the
Oh,
1989 movie, done by Lance and David Anderson. And just the way that they used the Gage puppet, and how they had like the Judd Crandall, sliced mouth piece for him. It was like a whole, puppet that they made for it. And just the way they did, like they had so many church cat puppets. I love that stuff. I could talk all
it's
day about that stuff.
it's funny too, because you look at that stuff and you think, how did they do a makeup on that actor to make such a gruesome wound? And then you find
Right,
out
right,
it wasn't the actor at all. They actually rebuilt the actor. Or
right,
how did they get an animal to perform that? Or, and it's like, no, it was a puppet.
right.
Again, really cleverly cut together. People don't realize outside of the actual creatures that special effects artists have to build that stuff too. It's really great. I'll mention for our audience members that there is a great new interview/studio tour with Kevin Yeager on
Yes.
the Studio 80i channel, which is also a two-parter, and I'll try and remember to link that in the description of this YouTube video. So look out for that. So anyway, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We're only doing a half-hour show, but again, to my listeners, if you go over to the same YouTube channel, Household Filmmaking, you will see the first part of this interview and maybe have some context for some of the other stuff that we said. And I'm going to invite Natasha to come on for 10 minutes to the post-show, which is available for my Patreon supporters only. So, Natasha, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure, and I know my audience is going to have enjoyed everything you had to say.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on. It's a blast.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I hope my audience enjoyed it. I know you guys did. So thank you, whether it be morning or evening, whatever time you're listening. Have a great one. Go create some stuff. Go watch a horror movie. And if you're listening to this upon release, happy Halloween.